In this section, we're going to go over our wave unload and then our reaching beast. So these two movements are going to start off from our loaded beast position. Okay, so if we're familiar with this, toes are curled under, drawing the hips back, and then walking the hands forward, drawing the shoulders in just enough to make sure they are down and back and everything is nice and tight around the shoulders, gripping the fingers into the earth and pressing your palms into the floor to create that tension, and making sure that the eye gaze is slightly forward, not to where the head is up and then not to where the chin is completely tucked to the chest, keeping that neutral spine. Okay, so from here we're going to go into what would look like a down dog. So what I want to think about doing when I'm creating this wave is really starting from the base and making all the energy come up from the base first and then send its way through into the head. So I'm going to press through my toes and drive my hips up, trying to keep my shoulders still low. Okay, now this is about as far up as I can go without lifting my feet because of the tightness in my legs. So I'm going to start driving with my feet. And as I drive with my feet, I'm going to think about this portion of my body around towards the end of the spine. And I'm going to think about drawing up the belly. Now, if you'll notice, it starts to arch my back. This is what we want. We want to initiate the movement from the sacrum here. So I use the toes to drive and then draw in my navel towards my spine. And then I keep using the feet to start shifting the weight. All the while, nothing is happening in my shoulders other than stability, keeping the shoulders drawn down and back. Still drawing in the navel. Now that I've reached this midway point from here, I can start to transition the energy into my shoulders. I start to feel my scapulas pull apart. The shoulders still trying to draw down and back as I'm shifting. From here now, the wave that began at the end of my spine is now dropping as the weight crescendos into the tops of the shoulders, pulling the shoulders back, slight bend in the elbows, drawing the hips down, and then that eye gaze to the sky. Now from here, I want you to check in and make sure your shoulders aren't rounded forward and you're not completely dropping into your belly like this. Let's keep those shoulders still down and back and keep a slight pull and tension into the belly. So eye gaze is going to go down first. From here, I'm going to pretend like there is a string on the top of my head, right in the middle of my forehead here, and I'm going to pretend like someone is pulling it and pulling me down. Now I start to push up with my hands, keeping all the tension through the bottom portion of my palms, shifting that weight up into the shoulders, completely protracting the shoulders, and now I push my weight back. So now you see I'm drawing the same way, only I'm pushing myself back, sending all that energy back down into the sacrum. I've reached my waypoint to where I can no longer keep my legs in this position, so this is where I'm going to go ahead and bend into the knees and drop down to the floor. Okay, so you can practice that progression from the knees as well. It's the same thing, simply shifting the hips back, and all you're going to do differently here is keep the knees down. So I'm still going to curl my toes underneath me, and then from here start to tuck my pelvis in and start to shift my weight forward, curling my pelvis, curling my lower tailbone and lumbar area underneath me, shifting that weight into the thoracic, and then drawing the hips down, shoulders back, eye gaze to the sky, draw the shoulders down and back, dump the head, push through the hands, and time. So our next progression that we're going to look at after learning the wave unload is going to be the beast reach. So the beast reach reminds me of a one-legged spinal wave. It is a little bit different in where we're going to position the leg and things that we're going to focus on throughout the movement. We're going to have somewhat of that curvature of the wave come in, but not necessarily starting from the bottom portion position. We'll have more of that coming up into the T-spine, through the shoulder C-spine, okay? So let's take a look at that. So we're going to start off in our loaded beast, drawing the hips back, hands forward, draw the shoulders down and back, okay? Now, from here, what is going to be different is we're going to prepare the left leg to take more of the load of the rest of the body, because the right leg is going to pull up into my belly, into the lower portion of my sternum here. Okay, so this is essentially the position we want to be at when we start to shift forward. And if I was to do this motion from my knees, this is exactly how I would be doing it. Toes curled under, drawing the shoulders down and back. And then as I pull myself forward, I'm pulling the right leg up and forward with me. The knee is going to come to try to reach the elbow, and then I'm pulling my shoulders back, protracting, and eye gaze comes forward and back. Opposite side and back. Okay, it is not the exact same as doing it the full length way, but it is a nice way to take some pressure off of how many reps you're doing, to build up that strength and build up that elasticity to execute the movement safely. So let's go ahead and transition into the regular movement of it. So again, loaded beast, finding that tension in the body, and then pushing off through the toes. And notice how I bring the leg up, and I do create somewhat of an arch here. And you may remember, this may feel familiar to you from our scorpion reaches, okay? I'm still making sure the shoulders are down and away from the ears, okay? That's still very important. I'm driving through the toes, so I'm pulling my heel up and then creating a nice long length here with my toes to make it beautiful. Draw the knee up. As I start to pull my weight forward, now the knee can come out by the elbow, and if you'll notice, I'm protracting heavily through the shoulder blades, so spreading them apart and pulling the ground apart in between my hands here slightly, and then shifting all that weight back and then setting the toe down. That one is a lot of tension and a lot of work for the shoulders to create that stability. So make sure that you're doing a proper warm-up before and a really good decompression afterwards. If you want to add that in with your mace work, a great mace movement to offset that is 360s. So that's going to help you unwind a lot of that tension in the back, or even inside and outside mills as well. So get you guys